Hey guys, so I got an email this week asking about MIDI controllers for use with VCV Rack, and in my opinion you should get one with as many knobs as possible. And the reason is because you can assign each one of the knobs on your MIDI controller to anything inside of VCV Rack using this little plugin here called MIDI Map. So I'm going to set up and show you how to do that. First, I'll make a voice. Great. And then I'll set up my MIDI map to my Arturia Mini Lab here. And I'll just click Unmapped, and then I'll turn something and assign it. Great, now these four control my filter. And I'll have these four control my envelope. And I'll just control the pulse width. Great. I'll just right click and it's done. I need to tweak everything because it jumped to the settings of my controller here. And you can just mess around with stuff now. If you heard that little jump there, you should check if you're having any sort of issues with processing or cracks. Check your block size, which is the amount of processing power you're allocating into VCV Rack. Try to keep it pretty high. It starts out pretty low just to make sure that VCV Rack doesn't interfere with any other programs that are happening. But if you're doing a big patch, you're going to want a lot of processing, and each module uses a different amount of processing, which you can check by hitting Engine, CPU Meter, and you'll see how much each module uses. Things like reverb tend to take up a lot of processing power, which I'll illustrate that. See this reverb here is taking 16 to 17% of my CPU's processing power, whereas everything else is taking between like 1 and 4%. So you'll probably want to stay away from using too many reverbs inside of VCV Rack. It's easier just to record things out into, say, Ableton, which we'll cover later on today, and then add reverb after. But also things you can do with a controller here is I have these pads set up over here to be toggles, so I can turn things off and on, and these to be sort of percussion pads. And you can use the Midi Gate. So I'm, again, set up to use the Arturia Mini Lab. I want to change this to only use channel 1 because I have my keys set to channel 1 of my Midi and my pad set to channel 10. So I'm going to monitor channel 10 here. If you hit all, it'll just pick up everything you do. So then I'll assign them. Great. And now I can use them to do things. Like I can toggle whether the reverb is coming through or not. So reverb on. Actually, that was off then, and now it's on. Off. And you can use these pads here to do things like play drums. I also got an email this week about making drums. So what we're going to do is make a kick drum, a snare, and a hi-hat. The kick drum will be an oscillator, a filter, an envelope, and a VCA. And we'll make a snare and a hi-hat from noise, filter, VCA, and envelope. All the same tools. All the same tools, just used differently. So we'll start with a sine wave here. Let me turn down this track a little bit. Actually, I'm going to put it in the reverb channel because we're not going to use the reverb now. So your sine wave starts up here, but we'll send an envelope into it. So the envelope, we're going to take away all the attack, all the sustain, and all the release, and we want sort of a medium short decay. We're going to send that into the FM of the oscillator. And then we want to bring up the FMCV, that's frequency modulation. So I'll assign this gate to a pad over here. So when I hit the pad, it's going to send that gate in there. If we tune it down, because kick drums are kind of low, it's like the effect of a mallet hitting a kick drum. Great. Then let's send that into a filter to cut out the highs, because kick drums are more of a low thing. And then we'll send that into the VCA and the VCA into our mixer. Then we're going to send that same gate into the VCA. And into the frequency of the filter. And then we're going to turn this up. And then just tune it to your liking. That's nice. All right, so next, a hi-hat. Because a hi-hat's a little bit more complicated than a snare. And you can make snares more complicated if you want to add sort of like the sound of the ringing, but we're just going to stick to the high parts. So I'm going to send this white noise into this filter. And I'm going to use the high-pass filter because I want to cut out the lows. So I'll put that into a VCA. And I'm going to use another envelope here. Another just decay envelope. Except this one I want it to be pretty short. Probably even shorter than that, but we'll start there for now. And then I'll assign this gate over here to another pad. Actually, I want that one. Did I send the noise in? I did. Oh, output. There we go. I want that kind of quiet. I think I want an even shorter decay. There we go. Maybe even quieter. Cool, we got a hi-hat, and we can change the decay. If you want more of an open hi-hat sound. But I like the clicky hats. And then we're going to use pink noise instead of white noise for the snare drum because it has sort of a lower sound to it. White noise is like even noise across the spectrum, and pink noise sort of falls off in the upper harmonics. So put that into this VCA, and then we'll probably want another envelope. I'll assign that to my middle pad. And I'm not going to use a filter on this one. Want it slightly louder than the hi-hat with a slightly longer decay. So hi-hat, snare. I feel like my audio's lagging a bit, so I don't know if that cut off or not, but there you go. So what this week is actually supposed to be about, generative sequencing and creative ways to make randomization inside of a patch. So let's talk about this module right here. The utilities module from Audible Instruments. I think I'll delete that and show you where it is. So it's an Audible Instruments and the utilities. So this has 3 different modules inside of it. This one right here is a rectifier, which takes, take a sine wave, from this LFO. And so a voltage, normally inside of a Eurorack modular system, volts go from 0 volts up to 5 volts. And that gives you like a 5-octave range, and that's what most things are reading. But voltages also go negative because electrons can flow forward or backwards in a system. So when this LFO is in bi-mode, it goes up and goes down. So what a rectifier here does is it only takes the positive out. You see, if we show the pink line here, it's going up and down. But the one coming out of the rectifier is only going up. That's called half-wave rectification. If we go whole-wave rectification, then it'll bend the lows back up, which is cool if you want to make sure that a modulation only happens in one direction. But that's not really important. That's not why we're talking about this module. So what we are trying to do is talk about the sample and hold here. So same example, let's take the same LFO into the in, and we're going to get an output. Boom. So what a sample and hold module does, and this took me a while to fully grasp whenever I was first starting out, because normally when you see the word sample, you think, oh, it's like sampling a sound. But no, this is sampling a voltage. So what we do is we send a trigger into it, and we'll use our main gate for this, and it'll take whatever signal we put into it, and anytime the trigger hits, or gate, it holds the value of that voltage at that exact moment until the next gate comes. So it finds a voltage, its exact value, and holds it at that location until it gets the go-ahead to change to a new voltage. So it takes like this LFO that's going up and down and turns it into these flat lines. And let's see what that sounds like whenever we use it to control the pitch of an oscillator. Well, it's still kind of, it's too random. That's not very pleasing. That's where this module, the Quantizer, comes in. You notice it has 12 bars, or actually, I'm going to count them. Probably only 11, honestly, yeah. Because it's the 12 notes in a scale, of a chromatic scale, from, C to C. So we'll take out the high C, and it's just 11. So what this does is it limits any voltage you put into it into those exact voltages that are notes in a scale. Normally, like before with the LFO, you heard it going all the way up and down. Let's put the LFO through this quantizer, though, and then put it into the oscillator. Sort of a chord scale going on. I'm not sure exactly which chord it is because I'm not sure which note we're starting on. But that doesn't really matter. It's much nicer now. So let's take that sample and hold signal and put that in there. See, it's much more random than just like the LFO going all the way up and hitting the notes coming back down. Ooh, it's so low right now I can't hear it. I can't even hear it. Some nice bass. So typically, instead of, you can put an LFO in there, but automatically it has a noise source patched in. Most sample and holds do. I mean, you can take a different noise source and put it in there, or anything you want really. But noise is so random that it'll give you the best randomness for your voltage dollar. I don't know. But still, that's a really wide range, and it's not quite usable musically. So that's where this 8-vert comes in. It's 8 channels of attenuverting. Okay, so before when we were talking about how signals go positive and negative, so an attenuverter, think of it as like a mixer channel for voltage. When it's straight up like this at 12 o'clock, no signal's coming through. Whenever you turn it to the right, that's letting volume through. Whenever you turn it to the left, that's letting volume through inverted, flipped upside down. So anytime a volume goes up, it goes down. And it's useful for making signals do the opposite of what you want them to do, or just limiting the amount of voltage coming through. And so we have this wide range of voltage right now coming from the sample and hold, but I want that to be limited down. I want the range of notes to be more grouped together. So I'm going to put my sample and hold signal into the attenuverter. That was probably really quiet before. And we have something melodic that's useful. Now let's build a voice around it. A voice in synthesis is a fully playable instrument. So that means it has an oscillator, a filter, an envelope, and a VCA. So I'm going to take this and put it into filter. I'm going to use a square wave. Use a low pass filter into the VCA. Then use this envelope here. And I'm going to send the gate, the same gate that's triggering the sample and hold there. Alright. So that's happening, that's happening. I'm going to go ahead and add some effects on here as well. Oh, okay, yeah, I need to send the envelope. We've got some chorus and some delay on there. And it's already a really nice patch. But it's really consistent. So now we're going to use some chance operations. So instead of sending every gate to it, we're going to send the gates through this Bernoulli Gate here. What a Bernoulli Gate is that whenever you send a gate into it, this knob has a percentage chance of it'll either come out the left side or the right side. So when it's red, it's coming out the left, and green coming out the right. When it's straight up and down, it's a 50-50 chance. So I'm going to move it over this way, and so it'll come out the left about 75% of the time. And so it's a bit more fluid now. It's not hitting every time. It's got more of a feel of an actual melodic line. And then I've gone ahead and made some drums below using this macro oscillator from Audible Instruments. I'll link the manual to this because it's a real Eurorack module, and if you read through the manual, this thing can do almost anything. That's why I have one doing a kick drum, one doing a snare, and one doing a hi-hat. And to get that rhythm there, I'm using this clock divider. So it's taking the master clock, which is the signal we use to keep everything in time with each other. And this one's by Audible, and I'll show a screenshot now of where you can download that. Well, it's the same place you downloaded the others. And so I'm using the kick drum. Every other time the gate comes through, it plays the kick drum. Every 4 times, it plays the snare. And the hi-hat, I'm just sending the main gate out. So it's a very simple, straight rhythm. So the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to send everything through a filter. I like sending my whole mix through a filter. And then moving that around with an LFO. open up the filter a bit more. But you can use these same techniques not just to create pitch, but to control anything. I mean, go through these same steps and use them to modulate anything. Let's take and send the same signal that we're sending to the pitch to control the release of the envelope. And that's creating a nice, like, weird rhythmic thing that's happening. Because sometimes the note rings out and sometimes it just stops. And again, if we wanted that to be less pronounced, attenuate it. Now, do I want the release to be longer or shorter sometimes? I think I want it to be longer sometimes. And to ensure that, I'm gonna rectify it. So it's only going to send through the positive voltages. Let's also use that signal to control the FM of the LFO. Play the quantizer. I mean, change the notes around. Into the quantizer. A great thing is to send the sequencer, one of the rows into the quantizer, so you can really tune in a sequence. Alright, we should move on to Ableton. Alright, so to get Ableton working, you're going to have to install these two files. They're VST files, so you just have to put them in your VST folder. I'll include both the 32 and the 64. I'm going to copy those, and I'll provide a link to these below the video. Into your program files, and put them in your VST plugins folder. Bam. Now you should be able to open Ableton. I took advantage of that free trial. So it should be in the plugins folder. See, we don't have any here. So what that means is that we have to go up to our options and our preferences, check our plugins, and rescan. Make sure that both of your VST2 and VST3 folders are set to the correct location, probably your VST folder in either your x86 or regular C drive locations, depending on which architecture you're working under for Windows. Right, but I rescanned, and great. It should pop up as a VST. We'll use the VCV Bridge 64, not the FX64. Not quite sure what the FX64 is for. I'll figure that out eventually. But this works. So then, down here, It's on port 1. Everything's working great. So we'll go over to the MIDI timeline here. I don't want that to loop. So let's make a cool thing happen. And if we go over to VCV rack, we see it's playing. So quick interjection. On this side of things, you need to make sure that your audio 8 is set to bridge, and whichever port you're going to use. You have 16 ports to choose from, so you can do 16 different channels of audio, and make sure the audio is set to that. And also on the MIDI CV, if you're sending MIDI from Ableton in, you want to use the bridge and the same port. So it'll send both the audio and the MIDI over the same port. And so as I was talking about before, how reverb takes up so much processing power, let's apply the reverb inside of Ableton. So we'll click on that track, go into audio effects, start with a chorus. And then we can just send this to the reverb channel. And we have VCV rack inside of Ableton. And you can sequence an entire track this way. If you're using the light, what you'll want to do is send the audio to like audio channel 4, and I'm setting channel 4's monitor to auto so I can hear it, and then I'm going to record it. Great. And then I can just go send channel 4 into the reverb. We add some delay on there. And it's really easy on the processing power if you record things and then have other things happen. Like now that I have it freed up, I could use that same channel over here to play a bass line. Like that. Grab them all, shorten them up. But after that, I'm going to come over here and make sure I'm not sending the audio there. Track 3 has gone. There we are. I'm going to delete track 3. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. Oh, what's that? What's that? Delete it. Got it. Alright, so now I can do a bass line. Record it to track 3. I'm going to loop it for a second so that I can mess with the bass and get the sound exactly the way I want it. Turn off the loop. cursor over there. Delete that. I should be good to record. So this week we covered how to get MIDI into VCV Rack and how to assign knobs to control different things as sort of performance. We covered random generation and quantizers and chance operations. And we covered how to get things into Ableton if you're interested in that. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm done for the day. Oh, and this week's track I recorded straight out of VCV Rack, one straight performance.